Hey guys, so this is a new build that I have been trying out for the last couple of weeks. Hopefully this time around the audio is a bit better. So this one is a soldier and champion build, and it's mostly focused around perma-casting Blitz. So as you can see, I have been able to reduce Blitz cooldown by 100% using the new Remodify option from that's available on Dawn of Masteries that allows you to create components based out of vanilla gear that have item skills modifiers. So I'm using three components that each have 1 second skill recharge, minus 1 second skill recharge to Blitz, and I'm using the mythical Phys of Justice for the additional 0.5 seconds. So as you guys know, Blitz has a 3.5 second cooldown, so all of that combination makes it that Blitz is perma-casted. The build doesn't really use a lot of button combinations, so I'm using Blitz to attack. I have at least 1 point invested in cadence just to trigger the momentum, so there's a bit more physical damage once I start spamming Blitz. And also I have Warcry for the 41 reduced target physical resistance. On the secondary layer I have Conviction, so physical resistance reduction aura and defensive ability reduction. And then there's also Field Command, Million Heroes Bulwark just for the additional physical damage, and Health Regeneration, and also Seal of Might, so your standard physical damage setup. This is, in addition of being a perma-blitz build, it's also a high HP regen build. As you can see, the base regen that I have right now is 4.2 thousand HP per second, and if I go ahead and activate all my buffs, it goes up to 5,000. And because I'm using the Avengers set and the Behemoth devotion, that can go almost as high as 12,000 HP regen per second when I'm being hit by enemies. So this build is pretty straightforward. You were gonna need the Avengers set, so you need the chest piece, the belt, the shoulders, and the two-handed mace. You don't really need this a fixed roll version, so this is just something that I had already stashed on from previous runs. It's just an added bonus. This gives you some more additional crit damage and some more physical damage, but the base Avengers Crusher should be enough. So what you're looking for here is just for all the Health Regen modifiers and the Nature's Avengers proc once you are hit. Additionally, you are going to need the Chalice of Barbaros, so you get additional 16 health regenerated per second, a large boost to your offensive ability, plus some damage boost when you're being hit. So you're basically going to be hit a lot. This is a two-handed build, so it's a soldier and a champion with a shield. Doesn't really matter because of all the defensive layers with HP regen. The amount of HP, as you can see, is already 32,000, and I still have some skill point leeway to invest skill points into both military conditioning and courage for even higher HP boost, but at 32k it's already pretty substantial. You're gonna need adrenaline injector, so there are some Grim Dawn relics that also have health regen per second. However, I am using those for the 13% offensive ability boost and the very large flat physical damage that this gives. This is also a must for your build, so Wendigo's Glare Monster Infrequent gives you some flat physical damage to Blitz. Also has a base crit damage modifier, plus you are gonna want some to at least drop with the of the Drangul suffix, because you're gonna need that health regeneration as well for this build. You can then let's just try and look for the best affix roll funk threads that you can find. However, just the base ones are good enough due to the +1 to all skills and physical resistance that they have. I am using the Colossal Grasp hand armor. There are some perhaps better variants for physical damage with higher physical damage modifier, even including physical flat damage. However, because this is a health regeneration build, those are the ones with the highest modifier. So this gave you 16 flat and a 17% increased health regeneration, plus a 3 point for Decorated Soldier, which is the modifier that gives you more physical damage and more elemental resistance. So overall, it's better fit for my build. As for rings and amulets, I am using the Judicator Seals set, so the Mythical Ghost Fist of Vengeance and the Mythical Open Hand of Mercy. So these ones are usually staples that are found on physical retaliation builds. However, they have very nice health regen modifiers, and so those ones are a must. There are some other variants in NCFF gear as particularly, so if you search for health regen, you have the Verdant Sanctuary rings, so those ones have quite a substantial percentage health regen increase, and you have the Empower Seal of Jade, which those can all be affix rolled as well, because they are so you can affix roll epic items, legendary items as well, so you can even improve those. However, the Judicator Seals set gives you a very nice boost to your offensive and defensive ability as well, and so yeah, it's the better fit for this build. And at the end, I'm using the Spell Scourge Deflector amulet just because of the +1 to all skills in Soldier and the high flat physical damage value that it has. But however, you can pretty much use anything that gives you some decent boost to Soldier, or you can even use the Bloodbrier's Thorn amulet if you have a very good one dropping from Bloodbriars. So as you can see, those are the base stats before any proc. So I have almost 3.3k offensive ability, 3k defensive ability, and around 270k DPS with Blitz, which is kind of misleading because I am hitting for nearly 171k with Blitz. However, if I were to take off the shield, the Face Guard of Justice helm, and use Milton's MI helm, you're gonna see quite a substantial boost. It's just that the way that sometimes this happens for some reason. Anyway, if you were to take this one and you were replace it with the Milton MI, because Blitz will be with a 0.1 second cooldown. For some reason the tooltip considers that double proc 9 times per second, and it will multiply that value by 9. Because I was seeing, before using the Face Guard of Justice helm, I was seeing 1.2 million DPS here. However, if you are actually using Blitz, you're gonna see how fast that damage just piles up. So as you can see, I'm dealing nearly 1 million DPS per second in a single target. So as I mentioned, when it comes to skills, you're basically just looking to max Blitz and Blindside. That 360 reduced target defensive ability is going to stack up nicely with your very high offensive ability. So I was testing this build out against Avatar earlier, and I was pretty much just perma-critting him. At the end of the video, I'll be also testing it out against Elite Ravager, so you guys gonna see how well it performs against even Celestials. 1 point in cadence and all of the skill tree should be enough. If you have skill points to spare by the end of the build, you can add some to Deadly Momentum. It's just not needed. You already have so much damage with Blitz. This is just an added on bonus. 1 point in Fighting Spirit, 1 point in Menhir's Will just in case. Yeah, I haven't gone below 2/3 of my HP even once I hit level 94. I was able to use this gear, so this is there just in case. But yeah, not needed if you want to say that as a skill point. 1 point in Broad Cry and max out Break Morale. You're gonna need to stack as much reduced physical resistance as you can. Also max out Menhir's Bulwark for the rather large Health Regen per second modifier. And then just add 1 point to Scars of Battle, max out Veterancy, max out Military Conditioning, so this is the one that I'm working on right now. Added some 1 or 2 additional points in Decorated Soldier when I needed the Elemental Resistance, but you can swap points from here and add it to Military Conditioning or to Courage as needed. So when it also comes to champion, as I mentioned earlier, you also would like to max Conviction, just also as well for the physical resistance reduction and defensive ability. You're gonna want to max Everlasting Might. This is always on, as you can see the passive here. So you're always gonna be benefiting for those 116 damage absorption, that 180 offensive and defensive ability, and that Health Regen. That retaliation damage is also nice if you are looking to do retaliation build, because the mastery bar also has an inbuilt 200% to all retaliation damage and inbuilt 150 auto regenerated per second. You want to look you want to add a 1 point to honor, just because it gives you some neat critical damage and some racial damage bonus. You want the max virtue for the large percentage boost to health regeneration, and then work on also maxing courage as well. As you can see, you get a lot of flat aether retaliation with champion, so it's 2000 already with both Everlasting Might and Courage. So if you ever want to do retaliation attack damage added to attacks, so this can be a very good build for that. There are also some other modifiers that you can add some points that will trigger as your HP goes lower. So this one gives you more health and more offensive ability and some damage reflected to enemy, and this one gives you increased total damage and percentage health to your character. However, as I mentioned, even fighting Avatar, I couldn't go below 2/3 of my HP, so I'm not gonna see those triggering often, so that will be a waste of points for my build. So devotion wise, it's pretty much just trying to get all of the, or as most of the HP regen nodes as possible. So I started with Lizard, kept my blue point here because I was working towards Kraken. This is just to add some decent damage to Blitz at the start, because this build doesn't really focus on physical damage that much, so the physical damage modifier will only see a substantial increase once you hit level 94. Before that I had like around 800% physical damage, and now I have near 2200s if I'm not mistaken. Let me quickly have a look at that. Yeah, almost 2,200, but before that was 800. So you are going to be suffering from physical lack of physical damage. So work towards Kraken at the start. Um, Also, use Raven. Use both Lizard and Raven as building block for Kraken, and then just work on getting Assassin's Blade also as quickly as possible for that physical resistance reduction. So putting Break Morale, Assassin's Mark, and Conviction Aura all together, I currently have 103 physical resistance reduction. So it's not the best, however, it's enough to bring down even Celestial's physical resistance to negative numbers. So it is very, very decent. Um, I was working as well in a couple of yellow devotions because I wanted to get scales of Okama and Tree of Oak. So for that I went with Panther. I didn't need to use Eel because I have already so much defensive ability. So Panther is a must because you are gonna be suffering for energy regeneration. As you saw when I was using Blitz, my energy bar was going down rather high. This is a Perma-cast plus Blitz build, so Blitz already costs around 70, 72, 70, no 80 energy cost per cast, and because you're casting so often, right? Yeah, unless you have something like 200 or 300 energy regen per second, you are not going to be able to keep up, and I only have around 95 because I just distributed enough points for to be able to use the spell Scar's Reflector Amulet and the rings. So everything else went into Physique. As you can see, I have almost 1,700 in Physique. So Panther and Devotions, Eel and Harvestman side, those are the ones that are going to give you all the energy regen that you need to be able to sustain this properly. So as I mentioned, work with Panther, then Hound and Lion, and that should give you enough points to start working with Harvestman Scythe and into Behemoth. So those should be almost all of your points, and at the end just finalize with the left hand side of Scales of Volcama, because at the end you have the 33% health regeneration and 12 health regenerated per second node, plus some attack damage to health. Also add all of the Keeper of the Wastes, just because of that. Dispel, this is really good, and I'm using because I also tied it to cadence. I'm making sure that procs rather often. I'm always using cadence just to trigger the deadly momentum buff, and then your final devotion should be all of the Tree of Life except proc, and just a couple of points here in Ghoul. So I could potentially take this point out of Ghoul and use the proc from Healing Rain, and that would make my HP regen even higher. However, with 12k when everything is proccing, I have more than enough at the moment, but I will adapt as needed, going deeper into SR higher and higher Shattered Realm shards. So that will be it for my build. A couple of things that I can show you as well is what kind of augments I'm using. So I'm using mostly just Cataclysm augments. So Crystallized Earth for both pants and chest. Primal Mana for the 50% energy regeneration and minus 25% energy cost on Helm. This is the only one that I'm not using any Cataclysm augment because I was needing the piercing and chaos resistance. However, because now that's sorted out with this build, I'm probably gonna be switching over to some energy regeneration, so from the carbon of Uchthenbog, just to try and get this energy regeneration a bit higher to mitigate costs. Don't want to be potting as often with Elixir of Spirit. It just disrupts the flow in combat. Anti-venom extract for hands, just because of that poison resistance and that regen. Primal Alert for the stun and petrify reduction, and Crystallized Life for the 5% health, 5% energy regeneration, and Essence of Destruction, just for the 5% of escapability on metals. Components are pre-standard, so Sacred Plating for the armored absorption, Spell Scorched Plating as well for the elemental resistance and health, Markham of Godren, Uchthenbog leathers on the pants. I could potentially use another anti-venom extract here just for the increased HP regen, because I'm already way overcapped in bleeding and in poison as well, so I won't be going into lower than overcapped for all resists. And yeah, so Zod rune for +1 to all skills, Seal of Might, the Remodify components on rings and amulets, and the Perfect Diamond just for the 10% critical damage and the good resist that this one gives. And of course, Heart of Corruption for metals. That's pretty much the only component I use for metals. There's no point in Dawn of Masteries of using anything else. So, as I mentioned, let's go ahead and try Ravager. So this should be, again, when I tried fighting against Avatar, it took me around 1 minute and 20 seconds to bring him down. It's not the fastest Celestial Killer build that I've ever did. In the past, I was able to pull out a 10-second Avatar kill. However, this one is pretty safe with all of the damage absorption mitigations that you have and the regen. So let's go ahead and try this one. So cadence to proc deadly momentum. Deadly momentum is gone. So as you can see, even though my life goes down a bit, I'm eating so often that, yeah. And here's where the HP, the mana portion comes into play. Like, for enemies that do have energy leech, it's really annoying. And I forgot that this version of Ravager, if you stand on that pool, it's just gonna debuff you to oblivion. So now this is going better. So as you can see, it's a pretty safe build. The regen alone that I have pretty much keeps me topped up. There's some leech as well. With the 400% weapon damage that I have with Blitz, I'm guaranteeing that I am leeching a lot of HP out of any hit that I do. So this is gonna be way slower than killing Avatar, just because of the debuff that he does. That fumble could be a killer in other builds. This one doesn't really matter that much. That HP regens keep me safe. However, it's just so annoying because it makes me reposition and it makes me miss attacks for a couple of seconds. And it's really large, like 92% chance to miss. That's insane. But yeah, that's done. So as you can see, that was a pretty, even though that was around 2 minutes, and just because it took me a couple of seconds to realize I was standing in that pool. Yeah, it's a pretty safe Celestial Killer build. As you can see, I had 24,000 incoming DPS, which doesn't mean anything for this character. The actual damage taken is rather lower than that, and yeah, that HP regen just brings that up rather almost immediately, to be honest. And one thing that I wasn't able to show you was how the HP regen looks. So let me quickly pick. Should be some enemies here. Yeah, cool. As you can see, 12.5k. So if I were to hit a healing rain here, potentially I could be looking into 15 or 16k HP regen per second, which would be what, 50% of my HP bar regenerated in a single second. So yeah, this build is pretty mortal as it stands right now. I have done some high HP builds in the past, which weren't quite as successful as this one, because some of the CC mitigation that I'm lacking even on this build would be killers. Like I had very high attack damage to health builds that would be stopped completely due to slow entrapment, or very high HP builds, which also as well because of slows that will, like something like T-Rail in SR will just kill me slowly, but I wouldn't be able to do anything against them. With this build with so much HP regen, and the fact that I can Perma-cast Blitz, which is a very high weapon damage build skill, then yeah, I'm having a hard time figuring out what can actually kill this. So it's gonna be interesting to bring this to high SR, and might record something later on with this one. However, I will be currently gonna be moving on to a new build, which won't be as OP as this one. It's just gonna be focused around green quest skills and items. I do have one other Remodify build planned for the future, which is gonna be 0-second cooldown devastation build with a 1 meter area of impact. So if you guys are not aware how devastation works, it drops a constant stream of projectiles into an area, and the smaller the area is, the more concentrated the damage is. So with a 1 meter AoE devastation area, that's pretty much a boss killer. But yeah, it will be an interesting build to do. But yeah, we'll post that as soon as I have it. Thanks for listening, everyone.